Grief has a sound, and that night it lived in the walls between our homes. It wasn't crying exactly. It was the quiet afterward, the hollow pause where laughter used to be, the kind of silence that presses against your chest until breathing feels like work. I remember standing in my kitchen with the sink running, unable to shake the feeling that something had broken nearby and that if I didn't move soon, it might break me too. Before this story pulls you any deeper, let me ask you something from the heart. If you believe in kindness when it costs something, in second chances when they feel risky, and in the quiet power of simply showing up for another human being, please take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel The Kindness Chronicles. Your support keeps stories like this alive. I had known my neighbor for years in the soft, distant way people know each other when their lives run parallel but never quite touch. A nod while taking out the trash, a polite smile by the mailbox, a brief exchange about the weather that never ventured into anything real. She and her husband had always seemed steady, like a lighthouse I passed every day without thinking about storms. Then one morning, an ambulance came and left without him, and the lighthouse went dark. The days that followed felt suspended, as if the entire street was holding its breath. Her curtains stayed drawn. Her porch light burned even in daylight. Flowers arrived and wilted. Cards piled up like unopened mail from a world she no longer recognized. I told myself that grief was private, that she would reach out if she needed help, that I shouldn't intrude. Those excuses felt reasonable until the night the silence grew too loud to ignore. It was late, the kind of late where thoughts get heavier and memories sharper. I was halfway through convincing myself to sleep when a knock came, soft but urgent. When I opened the door, I saw a person who looked familiar and yet completely changed. Grief had rearranged her face, hollowed her eyes, made her smaller somehow. She stood there holding herself together with both arms, as if one wrong movement might cause her to collapse. She didn't cry. That was the part that undid me. Her voice, when she spoke, wasn't dramatic or desperate. It was thin, careful, like someone stepping across broken glass. She explained, without details, that the house felt unbearable at night, that the memories grew louder after dark, that the bed felt like a monument to absence. She asked if I could stay, just for the night, because being alone felt impossible. In that moment, fear rose up in me alongside compassion. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing, of doing too much or too little, of stepping into grief so deep it might pull me under too. But something stronger pushed back against that fear, a simple understanding that this wasn't about me at all. It was about a person standing at the edge of a long, dark tunnel, asking for a handhold. Her home smelled like cold coffee and wilted flowers. Every surface seemed to carry a memory. Photos lined the walls, capturing a life that had ended without warning. I realized then that grief is not just emotional, it is physical. It occupies space. It rearranges furniture. It changes how light falls in a room. We sat in the living room, not speaking much, because words felt clumsy and unnecessary. Presence was enough. The night stretched on slowly. The clock ticked louder than it ever should. I noticed how she startled at small sounds, how exhaustion weighed on her shoulders without granting sleep. I struggled too, unsure of where to put my eyes, my hands, my thoughts. I had never been this close to someone else's raw loss, and it terrified me to realize how unprepared I was for it. As the hours passed, something subtle shifted. The fear I felt began to soften, replaced by a quiet resolve. I understood that I didn't need to fix anything. I couldn't bring her husband back or erase the pain clawing at her chest. What I could do was sit in that pain without running from it. I could be a witness to her grief, a reminder that even now, she was not invisible. Days turned into weeks, and the one night turned into many small acts of showing up. Groceries appeared at her door. Lights got fixed. Trash went out on schedule again. We spoke more, though never in dramatic revelations. healing didn't arrive in a rush. It crept in slowly, disguised as routine. Some mornings were harder than others. Some nights reopened wounds we thought had scabbed over. Grief, I learned, is not a straight line. It loops back on itself, surprising you when you think you've made progress. There were moments when I wanted to pull away, when the weight of her sorrow felt heavier than I knew how to carry. I worried about becoming a crutch instead of a bridge. But each time I considered stepping back, I saw small signs of change. The curtains opened a little. The porch light turned off during the day. She began to talk about memories not only with tears, but with a softness that hinted at gratitude. One evening, as sunlight spilled across the living room floor, I noticed laughter return to her face, brief and fragile but real. It startled both of us. In that moment, I understood something profound. Kindness doesn't erase pain, but it makes room for life to grow alongside it. Loss had reshaped her world, but it hadn't destroyed it entirely. Months later, she stood stronger, steadier, still grieving but no longer drowning. She began to rebuild her life in quiet ways, reclaiming routines, forming new hopes that didn't feel like betrayals of the past. And I, too, had changed. I was no longer someone who believed that kindness was a grand gesture reserved for heroes. I learned it was often small, inconvenient, and deeply human. If this story is touching your heart right now, if it's reminding you of someone you wish you had shown up for, or someone who showed up for you when the world felt unbearable, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who need them. Before this story ends, I have one special request. Please leave a comment sharing a moment when kindness changed your life, or when you chose to stay instead of walking away. Those stories matter more than you know, and they might be the light someone else is searching for tonight. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do for another person is not to speak, not to solve, but simply to stay.